So indeed, we are going to talk about code reviews and especially how to have Zen Code Reviews without having any conflict within the team. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Xavier Gouchet. I'm an Android architect at Deezer. I'm also the Mr. Tools of the team, CI admin and unit test advocate. And you can find me on all the social networks, as usual, with my handle, Gouchet. So first of all, let's have a show of hands in here. Who uses code review daily? Good, good. Who used to use code review and stopped? No. I'm interested to talk to you later. So to give you a bit of background, at Deezer we have 18 Android developers, all working on 3 main repositories and a dozen of non-main repositories, and everyone has varied skills and experience, which is a lot to deal with. So first of all, let's come back to the different purposes of code reviews. The first one is very straightforward, is to find defects early. That is, you can find logic fallacies or typos, spelling, edge cases, and potential technical debt early by having your code reviewed by someone else. The idea is that 2 pairs of eyes is better than 1. But it's the main thing you think about when you think about code reviews, but it's not the only purpose. For instance, you can harmonize the code base. When you have code reviews, you can make sure that the code style, naming conventions, architecture, and libraries are all the same throughout the whole code base. Especially when you have new developers who have their own way of writing things, having a code review is a nice way to make sure that everyone writes code the same way. It's also very interesting to generate discussions around the choices that are made, especially the choices in algorithm or data structure, architectural libraries. And it also generates discussion around the features, because if you have code reviews, you can learn about a feature and how the feature works long before it's actually in production, and that means that you can think about it beforehand. More often than not, I learn about new features during code reviews and start asking questions like, why is it implemented that way? Why is the feature, why does a feature works like this? Because sometimes, in some cases, it doesn't make sense from a user point of view. So you can have more thoughts of that from different people on the way the feature works if you have the code review beforehand. It's all nice to generate discussion about best practices, because sometimes when you have an issue or a problem to solve, there are more than one way to solve it, and code review is a good way to discuss an argument on which is the best practice. It's very nice also to do some team building, especially if you have a large team, because it generates cohesion and trust, because the more you read someone else's code, the more you can trust that they're good at their job, or not. And it lowers the LinkedIn factor. So what I call the LinkedIn factor, it's also known as the burst factor. Basically, it's how much in trouble you would be if someone in the team was hit by a bus. So I choose to call it the LinkedIn factor because it's less morbid. It's just someone being hired by someone else. So if you lose one member of your team from a bus or from a competing company, how much in trouble would you be? And code reviews help you make sure that everyone in the team knows about every piece of code in the application, especially if you have a large application. Then it also can serve as asynchronous pair programming. For instance, if you have a company with people in different countries and different time zones, you can have real-time pair programming, or it's very difficult, and code review is a nice way to have pair programming asynchronously. It's also very good to share knowledge, and we had the amazing keynote this morning about sharing your knowledge. And having code reviews help you onboard junior and new developers. Because when you first get into a team, if you can read the code that the others write, you start to familiarize yourself with the whole code base and not just the first few tasks that you're given. And also it starts with the idea that everyone has something to teach and everyone has something to learn. And even a junior developer can have something to teach to a senior developer. There are some downsides of code reviews, or at least some people think there are. The first one being that code review means that you have more time spent per ticket, so less time spent delivering feature. And especially you have product managers that say that we should deliver more feature faster. But the thing is that the time you spend on code review is time you won't be spending fixing bugs 3 weeks later. And the time that you spend fixing a bug 3 weeks after it's been merged is actually higher than fixing it right away when it's found in code review, because when you come back to it 3 months or 3 weeks later, you're going to have to go back to the mental state you were in when you developed the feature. You're going to have to dig and say, oh, how does it work again? Oh, like this. So it's harder to fix a bug later because you don't have it in your buffer, I guess. Also, it can lead to senior developer frustration, especially if you have the senior developer always saying the same, pointing to the same rookie mistakes and saying that the naming is bad or it doesn't follow the guidelines. And usually if you have this kind of problem, it usually means that you lack some documentation or the documentation is too hard to find. So these are downsides, but usually it hides other problems. So now what are the different kinds of code reviews? The first one that I call automatic code review is fairly easy. It's everything that can be done automatically by a computer. So it's static analysis. So the Android lints, find bugs, check style, and PMD. If you don't already know about them, please take a look because they are very, very useful to find potential issues in your code. And the same goes, so find bugs, check style, and PMD. PMD works on Java, detect, and click. It's not possible to read this word, but Catalint works on Kotlin. So it's very, very useful because it can point at some potential mistakes in your code, like possible null pointer exceptions or possible concurrency issues. And also I put the tests in the same category because the tests run without having anyone to do some work. You can make it run automatically on every PR. Then you have the pre-commit code reviews. So pre-commit code review, the basic idea is that you need to have someone review your code and approve your code before the code can actually be merged on the branch you're developing in. So the pros are that the quality is ensured before merging. So basically your code is not on any branch. It still lives only in a PR as long as no one approved it. And it means that all the code must be reviewed. But the cons is that you have a very high productivity impact because when you start working on a PR, you submit it and then you have to wait for someone else to read it and approve it. And it can also lead to the back and forth hell, which is basically you have a first developer reviewing your code and rejecting it and saying, yes, you need to change this part. So you change it, you update your PR, and then someone else comes in and say, oh, you also need to change this. So you update it, submit again your PR, and a third developer comes in, and basically it's hell. So it happens, but yeah, it's one of the downsides of the pre-commit way. The post-commit way is different. It's basically you can merge your PRs as soon as the tests are green, and then you just need to allocate yourself some time to come back and review already merged code. So the pro is that, of course, you can have a very fast continuous development, and you limit the Git conflicts because you don't have a PR waiting days or even weeks sometimes and having to be rebased, and you don't have to handle the Git conflicts. The cons is that you can ship a bug into production because the post-commit, if you don't have a time frame to do the commit, the bug can go into production and then you find it when it's too late. And if you find it too late, the resolution can be non-trivial. I had this issue once where a change was made while I was in holidays, and when I came back, it was already merged and already in production, and basically it had set up the tables in the database in such a way that we couldn't change it back, and so I didn't have my say in it. So very frustrating. You can also make code reviews optional if you have especially if you have a large team. So you can make it optional based on the commit author. So for instance, if someone is in the company for less than 6 months, or if it's a junior developer, you want to review everything. Or you can make it optional by commit length. So if if the commit changes only 3 lines, you don't need a code review, and if it's a larger commit, you want code reviews. You can make optional by files modified. For instance, say every time someone touches the build.gradle file, or the manifest, or the main activities, or the main services, or content providers, you want it to be reviewed. And you can also say, well, we're going to have random checks, so every n PR needs to be reviewed. Or you can have other rules, anything goes. Then you can have pair reviews with another developer. So basically the idea is that you're going to sit together and look at the PR in pair, which helps you provide a single feedback. So you can argue between yourself and discuss before submitting the review. It also helps to compare different viewpoints beforehand, before submitting the review. And it can also tone down the negative feedbacks. From experience, when you're alone behind your keyboard, you tend to be you tend to write harder comments than when you're two writing this together. Going a bit further, you can have also code review meetings with the author of the commit. So it's usually 3 to 7 attendees, and it's only for non-trivial reviews. So don't do that if it's just a one line to add if not nil. And that way it can be used to mentor the author, especially if it's a junior developer, and you can get an in-depth view. And what's nice with this is that the author of the commit can guide you through the PR in his or her own order. Because when you see the PR in GitHub or Garrett or whatever tool you're using, you see the files sorted alphabetically and not necessarily in the relevant order to understand the review. It's also nice to discuss alternatives because it's live talk and not back and forth with comments. And you can give immediate feedback on the issue. So, so how to do and how not to do code review. So that's the most important part because I've seen bad ways to do code reviews. The first thing to do is to write reviewable code. The main thing being to keep the commits short. If you don't already know git add -p, please take a look at it. The basic idea of this is that instead of adding the whole file, all the modifications in the single file, you can just select which lines, which modifications you want to add from a file. So basically you can have a file completely modified and split it into 3 or 4 commits to make the commits short. Comment the code, of course, because if you have something that's not trivial to read, it's going to generate questions in the code review, and it's going to generate a back and forth hell. Use a proper commit message, of course. Just don't say fixed bug. You have a lot of blog posts about how to write a good commit message. And internally, what we do is we also add a CR brief for non-trivial commits. So basically, CR brief is code review brief that we write inside the code review or inside the PR description, and it's a guide on how to read the code review. So basically, it's like, for instance, if you have a lot of files where you just renamed a class, you're going to have the modification in a lot of files, and most of them are not really interesting to read. So you can have a CR brief say, okay, I mostly changed this file, so just look at this class and this method in this class, and everywhere else it's just renaming something. Or you can say, if you want to understand the code review, just look at first this class or this POJO, and then you'd understand how it's used everywhere else. Also, if you have a ticket number, be it in Jira or a GitHub issue, you link to it from within your commit message or the pull request, because it's going to give context about the modification you made, and it's going to make the code review much more easier to do. Before submitting your code, review your own code. So that's something that I try to do every time I do a PR. It's switching my hat from the developer to the reviewer, and I do my own code review before submitting it to others. That way you can find easy to spot issues, such as typos, commented codes, or duplicates or possible refactorings. Because taking the reviewer hat makes you take a step back from your code, also copy-paste errors. So you take a step back on your code, and you take a look at it from a different point of view. And you're going to see all the small mistakes that people are going to say, oh, you need to, this is spelled with 2 L's, or you commented this line of code, just remove it, or why did you create this field? It's not used anywhere in the class. You can find those when you do your own code reviews. Then you have commenting on issues. This is a very bad example. So Linus Torvald is known for doing this kind of comments. He has a reputation. So this is something you should not do at all. Even if you're the boss of the company, you do not do this. So basically, the first thing is, when you want to pinpoint an issue, first, be precise. What exactly is the problem? You don't say, this code is bad, this is wrong, you're going to have bugs with this. You're going to say, this line could cause a memory leak. Say exactly what the problem is. And don't stop there. You need to argument, why is it a problem? You don't say, obviously, yeah, everyone can see that this is wrong. No, just say why this is a problem. Here, the activity reference. Oh, oops. So yeah, I don't know. My computer is it's a laptop, so it works. So it's coming back. It's coming back. Yeah, it's okay.
Try there.
Test, test.
Check, 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 check.
Test. Great. So, sorry about that. So I learned not to make joke about Linus Torvald. Anyway, so you need to argument why this is a problem. So for instance, you need to say here the activity reference is retained when you do this or that. Don't stop there. If you pinpoint a problem and you know where the problem comes from, help fix the problem. You can say, okay, here, if you want, you can use a weak reference and it would solve your issue. Whenever you pinpoint to an issue that you found as an issue, usually you know how to not do the issue, how to not do the bad code. Also, you need to define the criticality, because almost every code that you're going to see is imperfect, but not every imperfection needs to be solved right now. So you're going to say, okay, it's not critical, you can fix it later, but before the release candidate next week. That way, the PR can still be merged, but the author can have a new ticket or a post-it or a GitHub issue or whatever to say, yes, I need to fix this fast. So here are a few examples of how you could phrase some comments. So for instance, you can say, oh, the name of this variable is ambiguous. You could rename it as. This is actually a very good example because we all know that naming things when you develop is very hard. It's like 90% of your time is finding the right name for it. So usually when you submit a PR, you have something that's named this data or this manager, and it doesn't exactly describe what it does. And it's very easy to say, yeah, the name of this is wrong. But if you just say the name is wrong and you don't have something better to offer, just don't say anything at all. Or if you want to, if you don't like the name, just find another name that's better for it. I don't think this method should be in this class because it's outside of the class's responsibility. So here you see, you give your opinion and you give the reason for that. Here it's one of the solid principles that says you have a single responsibility principle. Or finally, my favorite one, because I use it like once a week. This rule has many edge cases. You should add more unit tests. You never have enough unit tests. Voting down. So voting down, depending on the tool you use, it's voting down or it's reject the PR, or it's something else. But basically, voting down is the author needs to work again on the code before it can be merged. Avoid blocking commits unnecessarily. Every time you block a commit, first you engage in the back and forth hell, and it's going to lead to frustration. But also, it's going to mean that the commit is going to wait longer before being merged, and you're going to have some Git conflicts at some point. Always make the reasons clear why you're voting down. So when you have a large commit, you made a dozen comments, and only one of them is actually mandatory to be fixed before it can be merged, say which one. Because otherwise the author can spend a lot of time fixing everything, and some of those were not necessary. Make a full review. So I had some colleagues that when they did a code review, they stopped at the first issue they found. So they found an issue, they say, oh, this is bad, you should change it and do something this instead. And they stop right there. And you know there are 8 other files that have not been read yet, but it stops there and say you need to change that, so he rejects the code review. And so you go back to your code, you update it, and you push it again. And the same developer comes back and say, oh yeah, great, you changed this. It goes to the next file and finds something else that you need to change. And it does that, and you can have 3 or 4 back and forth because they stop at the first issue they find. Do a full review, because if you stop at the first issue, you're going to lose everyone's time finding the other issues in the code review. And if an issue has already been raised, don't comment, just say +1, right? This is on Facebook, so you don't have to, it's very hard to have someone say, pointing the finger at a rookie mistake that you made because you were tired or you just made a mistake, and you have like 25 +1s on this, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm bad, okay. So it's very bad for the ego of developers to have this. Receiving critique, so about that,